When I first saw the Hilton on Granger Cliffs, I thought I had the wrong address. It didn't look like any Hilton I'd ever seen. No sleek glass walls, no bright logo, just a long stretch of dark stone, crooked chimney smoke curling up through the fog, and trees that pressed in too close to the road. The parking lot was gravel. The sign said Hilton, sure, but the letters were old, faded to the color of rusted blood, and the paint had started to peel around the edges. I sat in my car for a minute, engine ticking softly, still warm from the drive. I almost turned back, but I didn't have the gas for it, and honestly, I didn't have a better plan. I'd packed everything I owned into the back seat of a '98 Honda, with a rattling exhaust and one working speaker. I'd left the city 2 days earlier with the excuse of a new opportunity. The truth, I just needed to get away, from my ex, from everything. So I grabbed my bag and walked in. The lobby was dead quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, just paused, like the building itself was waiting to see what I'd do. It smelled like lavender and bleach. The front desk was a carved mahogany slab that looked like it had once belonged in a castle. A fire crackled steadily in the huge stone hearth near the lobby chairs, even though it was summer. I remember glancing at the thermostat near the elevators. It read 78 degrees. That was the first thing I noticed, the heat. It didn't make sense, but I figured, whatever, maybe they just liked it cozy. The second thing I noticed was Terrence. He came out from the back office, tall and wiry with a clipboard in one hand and a coffee in the other. His polo was tucked in too neatly, like he ironed it twice before putting it on. He didn't smile when he saw me, just nodded once and said, "You're the one who applied last night?" I said yes. He nodded again and held out the clipboard. "No experience necessary," he said. "We're short-staffed. It's night shifts, mostly quiet. You'll be alone most nights. Think you can handle that?" I wanted to laugh. Instead, I said, "Yeah, I don't scare easy." That made him pause. For a moment, I thought he might smile, but he didn't. He just stared at me with this tired kind of look, like he'd heard it before, like he was waiting for me to understand something I didn't yet. "Good," he said. "We'll see." That first night, he kept things simple. Showed me how to check guests in on the old desktop computer, where to find extra towels and breakfast vouchers, what to say when people ask for toothpaste at 2 a.m. I followed him around like a shadow, nodding, making notes in my head. Around midnight, he handed me a keycard and said, "You'll find the break room behind the laundry chute. Staff lounge is in there. Coffee's bad, couch is worse, but the microwave works." He didn't follow me in. The lounge was small, just a table, 2 stained chairs, and a vending machine that hummed like it was about to take off. On the back wall, there was a corkboard filled with safety posters, training schedules, and coupons no one had clipped. But one thing stood out. A laminated piece of paper, taped dead center, eye level. Big red letters scrawled across the top. For new hires. Underneath, 6 rules, all caps, typed in faded ink. 1. If you see the bellhop without eyes, don't speak, don't help, leave the floor. 2. Room 313 doesn't exist. If the key shows up, put it in the lost items bin. Never open the door, never acknowledge the crying. 3. If the man is at the ice machine, leave a soda and walk away. 4. If the girl enters the elevator, do not press the basement. Get off on the next floor. 5. If Eli offers food, ask what the special is. Don't eat it, compliment the smell. Leave. 6. If someone wears your name tag, do not confront them. Report it and take your break in the courtyard. I read them twice. I waited for a laugh, a punchline, a little note at the bottom that said something like, "Welcome to the team, rookie. Enjoy the hazing." There wasn't one. I left the room and asked Terrence about it. He just said, "Don't worry about that your first night. Just remember rule 1. That's usually the one that shows up first." I smiled, trying to match his dead serious tone. "That's supposed to be a joke?" He didn't answer. By the time I clocked out the next morning, the fog had crept in around the trees so thick I couldn't see the road. It took me 20 minutes to reverse down the gravel driveway. I kept checking the rear view, half expecting someone to be standing there. My second night was quiet, too quiet. I remember thinking that was a good thing, just a few check-ins early in the evening, then nothing. No calls, no weird guests, just the hum of the desk lamp and the faint sound of crickets outside. Terrence had already left. He usually stayed until about 11, then left me with the night shift clipboard and a half-full coffee pot. I thought about the rules once or twice. Mostly just shook my head at them. I mean, it had to be a joke. Probably something someone typed up years ago and forgot to take down. Creepy hotel hazing or some messed up version of team bonding. Still, I had snapped a picture of the rules on my phone. Just in case. The weird part started around 3 a.m. I'd just come back from the kitchen behind the lounge, refilled the hot water urn, restocked the lobby snack bar. I grabbed a packet of pretzels and was heading toward the stairs for a quick lap through the second floor, like Terrence had shown me. The stairwell door opened with a creak that sounded louder than it should have in the quiet. I took the steps slowly, mostly just trying to stay awake. At the second floor, I pushed the door open and froze. There was someone in the hallway. About halfway down the corridor, under one of those antique wall sconces that glowed a faint amber, stood a man. He was tall, slender, dressed in a burgundy bellhop uniform so pristine it looked like he'd been sewn into it. Gold trim, brass buttons, perfectly polished black shoes. He held 2 suitcases, one in each hand. They weren't modern rolling ones either. They were the hard kind, like something from the 1940s. For a second I almost called out to him. My mouth was already halfway open. Maybe he was lost. Maybe he was just some old-school guy with weird fashion choices. Then he turned. Slowly, too slowly. His head pivoted like a puppet's, like it didn't weigh anything. And that's when I saw it. He had no eyes. Just smooth, pale gray skin where his eye sockets should have been. Like someone had pressed clay over his face and smoothed it out. Didn't look surprised. Just tilted his head, like he was listening. I stepped back, my breath catching, and then the memory hit me like a slap to the back of the head. Rule 1. If you see the bellhop without eyes, don't speak. Don't help. Leave the floor. I didn't need to be told twice. I backed away, slow and silent, gripping the stairwell door. It felt colder than it had a second ago. I didn't take my eyes off him, even as I eased the door shut. It clicked softly. I didn't run, not until I was halfway down the stairs. In the lobby, I leaned against the front desk, heart pounding. The fireplace still crackled. Everything looked normal, clean, safe, but I could still feel it. That pressure, like the hallway upstairs hadn't let go of me yet. Like some part of me was still up there. I didn't see him again that night, didn't hear anything either. No elevator dings, no footsteps, but I kept checking the stairwell every half hour, just in case. I didn't trust that he'd just disappear. By the time my shift ended, the sky outside was a murky gray, fog pressed up against the front windows like a heavy blanket. I drove home with my headlights on and my fingers clenched tight around the wheel. I didn't sleep when I got back to my apartment. I just sat on the floor with my back to the door, pretzels still in my coat pocket, and stared at the wall. The bellhop had been real, and I hadn't said a word. Whatever the hell this place was, those rules weren't some dumb prank. They were warnings, and I'd just barely passed the first test. By the end of my first week, I was keeping the rules in my apron pocket. Not because I believed every word yet, more because I didn't want to forget them if something happened again. After the bellhop, I started to notice things. How the lights in certain hallways flickered at the same time every night. How the elevator button for the basement was always cold, even when nothing else was. How guests never seemed to mention the fog or the strange noises outside, like they didn't hear them. Or maybe they just didn't want to. Terrence didn't bring up what happened with the bellhop. I didn't either. We just fell into a quiet rhythm, clipboard at midnight, a few muttered reminders, and then silence. That was when I met Sienna. She was the night housekeeper, early 20s like me, with short blue hair and sleeves of tattoos peeking out from under her uniform. Friendly, blunt, always chewing gum. She'd started a few days before me, but she already acted like she'd seen it all. We talked during shift overlap, usually in the lounge while restocking towels and folding little paper slippers. One night, she walked in holding a key between 2 fingers like it was a dead bug. "Found this in the drawer behind the front desk," she said. "Weird one. Old style." I looked at it, brass, tarnished around the edges, a red plastic tag attached with a fading number, 313. I felt my stomach clench. I reached for my phone, pulled up the picture of the rules, and turned the screen toward her. Rule 2. Room 313 doesn't exist. If the key shows up, put it in the lost items bin. Never open the door. Never acknowledge the crying." Sienna raised an eyebrow. "You serious?" "Dead serious," I said. "I haven't seen the room listed anywhere. Not on the map. Not in the system. Doesn't exist." She turned the key over in her hand, inspecting the grooves. "Then where'd the key come from?" "I don't know," I said, "but don't open any doors with it." She gave me a look like I'd just told her the moon was made of cheese. "Okay, urban legend, got it." "I'm not kidding, Sienna." "Neither am I," she said, slipping the key into her apron. "I'm gonna stick it in the bin later. Relax." She didn't. About an hour later, Terrence went out for his usual smoke break. Sienna waved at me on her way down the East Hall, claiming she was checking for a guest complaint. I had no reason to doubt her. Until she didn't come back. At first, I assumed she was taking her time. Maybe she got caught cleaning a spill. Maybe she ran into one of those overly chatty guests who treat housekeeping like therapy. I waited. 20 minutes passed, then 40. Then I started walking. I searched every floor. Called her name, checked the women's restroom, the service closets, even peeked into the boiler room, where the light always flickered, like it had a grudge. Nothing. It was close to 3:30 a.m. when I opened the linen closet on the 3rd floor. There she was, curled up on the ground, knees to her chest, her apron crumpled beneath her. The room 313 key was still in her hand. Her lips were moving, but her voice was barely above a whisper. "She's still crying," she murmured. "She's still crying. She never stopped." I knelt beside her, gently pried the key from her fingers, and wrapped her arms around her own shoulders. She didn't resist, didn't even look at me. I got her down to the break room and sat her on the couch, but she wouldn't respond to anything I said. She just kept mumbling, eyes wide, staring at something that wasn't there. When Terrence came back inside and saw her, he didn't ask questions. He just stared at the key in my hand, took it and locked it in the drawer behind the desk. "Did she open the door?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "I think so." He nodded like that was the answer he expected. "She won't come back." I thought he meant for the night. I was wrong. Sienna didn't show up for her next shift, or the one after that. I tried texting her, calling her. Her number was disconnected by the end of the week. The last time I saw her name was on a paycheck envelope that sat untouched in the staff safe for 2 weeks before Terrence quietly threw it away. By the time week 2 rolled around, I stopped pretending this job was normal. The guests were still polite, still tipping and smiling and asking for extra towels like nothing was wrong. But once the sun dipped behind the cliff line and the fog crawled in, everything changed. The halls got colder. The wallpaper seemed to breathe. Sometimes I'd catch faint music from nowhere, like old ballroom jazz echoing faintly through the vents. Nothing on the security cams. Just sound with no source. I started walking faster between tasks. I kept one earbud in with soft music playing, like that would help. It didn't, but I kept showing up, partly because I needed the money, mostly because I was scared of what might happen if I left. Like I was already part of whatever this place was. And then the ice machine incident happened. It was a Tuesday. I remember that because the vending order had come late and I was behind on refilling the drinks. Terrence had left right on time, like always, and I was doing room supply runs to catch up. Around 2:30 a.m., I headed up to the 2nd floor with a stack of towels and a list of requests. That's when I heard the whisper. "Cold." At first I thought it was someone in one of the rooms, but the hallway was empty, too empty. No TVs, no footsteps, no distant elevator chime. I rounded the corner and stopped dead. There was a man standing at the ice machine at the far end of the corridor. He was facing it, almost leaning against it, like he was trying to crawl inside. His back was hunched. His gray suit was soaked through, hanging heavy on his frame. The fabric clung to his body like it had just been pulled out of a lake. His dark hair dripped steadily onto the floor. He kept whispering that one word, "Cold," again and again, each time softer than the last. I stared, frozen, until something about the floor caught my attention. There was a pool of water forming around his feet. It should have soaked into the carpet, but it didn't. The water just sat there, perfectly still. The carpet under it stayed bone dry. That's when I remembered Rule 3. If the man is at the ice machine, leave a soda and walk away. I looked down. Nothing in my hands but towels. No soda. I panicked. Every logical part of me screamed run, but I didn't want to startle him, whatever he was. I dropped the towels on a nearby chair and backed up, moving as slowly as I could without making a sound. And that's when the ice machine screamed. It wasn't a whir, not a rattle or a pop, it was a scream. Metal being torn in half, something inside it shrieking like it had lungs. I bolted, full sprint down the stairs, didn't stop until I hit the lobby and nearly crashed into the front desk. I didn't know what to do. I just stood there, shaking. I checked the break room fridge, grabbed the first can I saw. Generic cola. I raced back up the stairs, each step heavier than the last. When I got back to the second floor, the man was gone. The puddle was gone too. But the machine, the metal door on the front was warped inward like something had punched it from the inside. And lying right next to it on the carpet was a single tooth. Small, yellowed, human. I set the soda down carefully and backed away. After that, I started keeping a can of soda in my apron every night, just in case. By the middle of week 3, I had a new ritual. Phone charged, soda in apron, keys clipped to my belt loop, rules in my pocket, walkie on. It wasn't paranoia, it was survival. I knew that now. But the hotel didn't care how prepared you were. Not really. If it wanted to throw something at you, it would. And that's exactly what happened the night I forgot my own rule. It started like any other shift. A few early guests heading to their rooms, the usual low chatter near the fireplace before everyone disappeared behind closed doors. Around 1:45 a.m., I took a quick round up to the 3rd floor to check a noise complaint. Nothing was there. I figured it was the pipes again. The building groaned in weird ways at night. I was tired, my feet sore. I took the elevator back down. I'd used it 100 times by then, enough to forget how dangerous comfort can be. It stopped at the 2nd floor. Doors slid open with that usual sticky glide. She stepped in, a little girl, maybe 7 years old. Hilton Kids Club t-shirt, wet hair plastered to her cheeks. She smelled like chlorine and something else, mildew, maybe. She looked up at me and smiled, water dripping from the hem of her shorts onto the elevator floor. Then she said, "Basement, please." My blood went cold. Rule 4, if the girl enters the elevator, do not press the basement. Get off on the next floor. I froze. Every thought in my head scattered. I didn't move, didn't press a button, didn't step out. The doors closed, the lights above us dimmed, then the elevator dropped. Not physically, not like a real fall, but inside my head, it felt like I was sinking, fast and deep, like the floor of my mind had just caved in. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. My arms felt heavy, my thoughts twisted like they were being pulled underwater. And over it all, I heard her giggle, just soft, wet laughter echoing in the dark. When the lights flickered back on, she was gone. The floor was dry, but the mirrored wall across from me showed something I'll never forget. My reflection was still there. It blinked after I did, just a half-second late, but I saw it. I ran. I hit the emergency stop, forced the doors open, and shoved myself into the hallway on floor 1. I didn't care who saw me. I didn't care if I tore my jacket. I bolted straight to the stairwell and collapsed at the landing, chest heaving, stomach twisted in knots. I threw up. Right there on the concrete. No little girl should ever make someone feel like that. I didn't take the elevator again for the rest of the week. A few nights later, just before 5 a.m., I realized I'd left my phone in the staff lounge. I almost let it go. But I needed it to clock out, and honestly, I didn't want to leave it alone in the building any longer than necessary, so I went back. The break room was dim, just one ceiling light on. The hum of the vending machine had gone still. The clock on the wall had stopped ticking. That was the first sign. Then I saw him. A man stood at the small buffet table near the coffee pot. Hilton apron, cracked name tag that read Eli. His back was to me. He was stirring something in a large pot, slowly, carefully, with long movements. His skin looked stretched. That was the only way I could think to describe it. Too tight, like it barely fit over his bones. His neck moved in short little twitches as he stirred. He turned toward me. "Morning, kiddo," he said, smiling with lips too thin. "Hungry?" Rule 5. If Eli offers food, ask what the special is. Don't eat it, compliment the smell, leave. I forced a smile I didn't feel. "What's the special tonight?" "Goat hash," he said proudly. My stomach turned. "Smells amazing." I lied, even though the air was thick with something sharp and metallic, like iron and overcooked onions. He nodded, satisfied. The lights behind me dimmed just a little. I didn't wait. I backed out of the lounge, never turning my back on him. As soon as I hit the hallway, I broke into a jog. I didn't stop until I was behind the front desk again, gripping the edge of the counter like it was the only solid thing left in the world. That was the moment I stopped calling them rules in my head. They weren't suggestions. They weren't quirky traditions or ghost stories passed around to spook the newbies. They were instructions. And if you didn't follow them, something would follow you. I thought I was getting better at this. The rules weren't just ink on paper anymore, they were part of me, like muscle memory. Soda in the apron, no elevator, never ask questions, never follow noises, never, ever help. It made the nights bearable, predictable even. Until Terrence disappeared. He didn't say he was quitting, didn't leave a note, no warning, just gone. I clocked in, and he wasn't there. The clipboard sat on the counter, already filled out. That alone made my stomach twist. I found his name tag about 2 hours into the shift. It was lying on the tile floor outside the storage room, just sitting there like someone had dropped it on their way out. Only Terrence never went near the storage room. He hated it, said it gave him migraines. I picked up the tag and slipped it into my pocket, unsure what else to do. I told myself I'd ask in the morning. Maybe he took off early. Maybe he'd had an emergency. Maybe I already knew better. That night, around 4:15 a.m., I was doing my final sweep of the second floor. I'd just finished checking the vending machines when I saw someone vacuuming the hallway near room 207. At first, I thought it was maintenance, though it was weird timing. But as I got closer, I realized something wasn't right. She was wearing my uniform. Not just the same style, my actual uniform. Same stains on the cuff. Same patch where I'd stitched up a tear near the side pocket. Same everything. She had the same build, same walk, same ponytail. And then she turned. She was me. Down to the freckle on my jaw and the chipped nail on her left thumb, she smiled, and on her chest, clipped just above the Hilton logo, was my name tag. Rule 6. If someone wears your name tag, do not confront them. Report it and take your break in the courtyard. I knew what I was supposed to do, but I didn't move. She turned back to the vacuum like nothing was wrong. The hum filled the hallway again. My heart was hammering, mouth dry. Every instinct screamed run. But I didn't. I broke the rule. Hey! I snapped, stepping forward. She bolted, dropped the vacuum and sprinted down the hall like she'd been waiting for me to speak. I ran after her without thinking. She flew around the corner and through the stairwell door. I shoved it open, expecting stairs. What I saw instead stopped me cold. It was the lobby, but not the one I'd left downstairs. This one was older, like a faded version of the real thing. The front desk was warped wood with candle holders instead of lamps. The chandelier above was dark and swaying gently, though there was no breeze. The fireplace burned green. She stood behind the desk now, perfectly still, watching me. Still wearing my face, still wearing my name tag. I stepped backward. My heel hit the baseboard. She tilted her head, but didn't speak. Didn't need to. Her eyes said everything. I ran. I didn't stop until I hit the real courtyard, shaking, breath ragged, the fog brushing against my arms like cold fingers. I stayed out there until dawn. Terrence never came back. No one talked about him. His desk stayed untouched, his locker still locked. It was like he'd never been here at all. I thought about reporting it, about telling someone higher up. But what would I say? He was replaced by a version of me that led me into a different lobby with candlelight and green fire. Yeah, that'd go over real well. So I stayed quiet, and I kept following the rules. Mostly. It's been a month now. I still clock in at midnight. Still dodge the bellhop. Still keep my pocket stocked with soda and a copy of those 6 rules. Sometimes I wonder why I'm still here. I think about leaving. About packing up, driving off, and finding some job with fluorescent lights and normal hours and 0 chance of being eaten by an ice machine. But something about this place keeps me. Maybe it's the land, maybe it's the cliffs, maybe it's the feeling I get when I step outside at 5 a.m. and the fog finally breaks and everything is dead silent, like the world itself is holding its breath. Or maybe I already belong to the hotel. Because I've learned one thing. This place isn't just haunted, it's alive. And the rules, they're not just about staying safe, They're about keeping the balance. As long as I follow them, maybe I'll make it to next month. Maybe.